This is my message to the honourable people in the Kurdistan government. Clean the government of these corrupt people by investigating what I report. Let us watch this video from Human Rights Watch. What they say applies to what Gassim mentioned regarding the and to what happened to him.
Enforced disappearances in Iraq are a common phenomenon. Enforced disappearance is when state forces detain someone and then the authorities provide no information to their family on why they're being held and where they are. It's a serious crime under international law.
And this is exactly what Kurdistan Consulate tried with me and hid the fact Gassim was detained in their prison, despite me being a British citizen. Imagine what their response is with Iraqis.
What we've seen in the battle against ISIS is a real spike in those numbers, with security forces using the guise of counterterrorism operations to target mostly Sunni Arab families and detain Sunni Arab men.
As well as being detained under accusation of supporting ISIS, despite there being not a single piece of evidence against him.
They actually saw the detaining officers. These were people in uniforms with badges showing very clearly their affiliations within the government structure.
Those who detained Gassim were part of the Kurdistan army, and they proudly announced what they did in the media. However, they didn't mention his name or any personal information about Gassim. Firstly, because he couldn't find evidence against Gassim. Secondly, because he cannot enforce his disappearance if they provided any personal information in the footage. Let's look at the so-called evidence this Peshmerga army general who ordered the arrest of Gassim and his brother had. He found a lot of food products in their store. Well, they did have a food market just 3 minutes drive away. Other evidence includes medical devices he found, stethoscopes, blood pressure monitor. Gassim is a doctor. Strangely, the general said one piece of evidence made him even more suspicious of Gassim. He found a ladder at the farm. Imagine. He said ladders are the main tool that ISIS use to jump from one place to another. What a genius this Peshmerga army general is.
سیاجی ئەم باخەیشەوە دەرەجێک دانراوە بۆ هاتوچۆ ڕێگەی هاتوچۆکان کە دیارەکراوە.
Also, he found paint thinner, but couldn't work out what the purpose of the thinner was. He thought hard, but still couldn't find the answer. There was a can of white paint in the same bag, and there was a mobile home, a caravan, half painted. Gassim and I were going to stay there when I joined him for a holiday.
تەنانەت تەنەر بنزین تەنەر نازانم تەنەر لێرە چی کارێکیان پێی هەیە لەمانەوە دۆزیوە.
The general also found binoculars, which I had given to Gassim, alongside 3 mobile phones. But were there any guns, bullets, any explosive materials? The funniest part of his charade, he said the evidence that guided him to Gassim and his brother was that he noticed a lot of movement at night in the thermal night vision camera in their area.
وشوان لكاميرا حراريكم تابعمان كدوا هاتوچۆ لەسەر ئەو باخانە هەیە کە زۆر گومانیان کە لەو شوێنە بووتیان لە کامیرا حرارەکانمان شەو متابعەمان کردووە لە 12.
But later, when he told the investigation he found nothing against them, he said he was wrong, and those movements were actually cows. What general cannot distinguish between humans and cows? So it was maybe not strange for him to describe the food stuff, rice, lentil, wheat, barley, as fast food.
دۆزیەوە بەرچاو کەوت و لە دووسێ شوێن ئەمە لە شوێنێکیانەمە چەندین تەن برنجە بەس لەم شوێنەوە لە دوو شوێنی تر و بە چەندین تەن برنج و نیسک و نۆک و ڕۆن و هەموو جۆرە خواردنێک و تەنانەت هەنگوین و بەشێک لە خواردنەکانە و خواردنە سەفەریە سەرپێیانن کە گومان سەفەریە.
Yes, it's fast food for a cow, as long as he cannot differentiate between the two. Did this fast food stimulate your appetite, so you put him in prison to steal his fortune, Mr. Alibaba? Is this such a military individual that Europe and America support financially and militarily and depend on to fight ISIS, so as no ISIS can breed and multiply there? Moreover, logically, if you suspect someone is a terrorist in a city, you are supposed to inform the security authorities to put him under watch for days, weeks, or even months, to find out who else is involved, who are they meeting, then capture them with that evidence. While you admitted you received information from the Iraqi side about him yesterday and you captured him the next day, are you really a general in the army? A simple soldier knows these ABC rules. Or did you see the store was full of stuff, so you lost your patience to wait and decided to enjoy the feast? Is it even that you knew for sure he was not ISIS, but your goal was the store and the fast food inside it? Now that you've heard what this clever military leader, the Sherlock Holmes of the Peshmerga army, about the evidence he found to make him suspect Qasim as ISIS. To accuse someone of a crime, there has to be reasonable suspicion. Let's have a quick look at Qasim's ID, character and CV, and then you can decide who Qasim is. Qasim worked as a volunteer at a Kurdish hospital, Khanakin, for a few weeks as an anaesthetist, just before and after the Saddam regime fell, and worked about 2 months in Suleimani Hospital just before he left for Turkey, then Ireland. Qasim was working with Iraqi police and American troops in a medical centre inside Iraqi Ministry of Interior from 2004 until he left Iraq in 2008. He had to hide his ID badge in his socks on his way to work. His manager, Dr. Ahsan al-Hadri, was killed by the militia who fought America. After that, Qasim moved to Ireland as an asylum seeker. Moreover, he had published a lot of videos, some of them against ISIS.
خارج الأمس هم أنفسهم ورثوا ذات الفكر الانتحارية اليوم. The people free to choose their religions regardless their choice wrong or right, while those claim they are Muslims from ISIS.
In Britain, we took to our doorsteps every week to applaud the NHS staff during the pandemic and called them heroes. Qasim was NHS staff, but he stepped up to be a superhero when he volunteered to work in direct contact with COVID patients at the Nightingale Hospital. At the beginning of the pandemic, COVID meant death, but that didn't scare Qasim or stop him stepping forward and taking risks to support the British people, despite his age being 52. Is this the character of a terrorist? For Qasim, this was expected from him. Indeed, the first doctor who died in the UK because of COVID was a Muslim. The first nurse who died in the UK because of COVID was also Muslim. They simply followed what the Quran says. Whomever saves a life, it is as though they have saved all of mankind. The Quran didn't say whomever saves a Muslim life, but whomever saves any human life. The King of the UK, Charles, specifically thanked the Muslim community for their role in COVID and said,
Assalamu alaikum. Most tragically, I know that a number of highly experienced and invaluable doctors and nurses from the Muslim community have lost their lives to this pernicious virus. To their families and colleagues, I can only convey my deepest possible sympathy, and to everyone on the front line of whatever religion.
Is this the character of a terrorist? If you don't respect Qasim while he worked in your hospital, do you care about his work in the UK? Qasim has a master's degree from King's College London in clinical neuroscience. When I decided to be confirmed as a Christian, Qasim didn't try to make me change my mind or convert me to Islam. He went with me to the church and he told me both of us believe and worship the same God. He took this picture of me. Is this the characteristic of an ISIS person? What are the security in Kurdistan doing? Do they really have a mind block and cannot distinguish between who supports ISIS and who doesn't? How easy it would have been to know this information in days if they had simply cared to look for the truth. How could they keep such a person for 4 months in prison under accusation of supporting ISIS? Do they have a single plausible reason or explanation for this? Does Peshmerga army deserve the support of my government while they have such a Peshmerga general and don't take him to court and put him in the same prison that he sent Qasim to? However, what happened to Qasim makes him love Kurdistan more, and more insistent on bringing those minority of thieves and criminals to justice, those who still have a militia mentality. Not only Qasim, but me as well. If I missed Qasim, knew nothing about his whereabouts for a few months, that makes me understand the feeling of thousands of Iraqi women and children who lost their loved one in the same way for years. That is why I am delivering this long message to you, to make those responsible for these crimes face justice. Therefore, it is the duty of the government to keep the security and army under their control and deter anyone overstepping their role or breaking the law. Qasim told me that he will never hate Kurdistan or its army or police who work hard to keep their people safe, because he saw how the majority of them were kind and dealt with him in a very respectful way. In fact, with all prisoners, the prison cell was equipped with heating and cooling systems wide enough, and the prisoners received plentiful, good quality food, which clearly indicates the seriousness of Soleimani government towards human rights and that they respect their citizens, whether inside or outside the prison, except the minority of corrupted individuals within the security authorities. If they knew nothing of Qassim's character, just knowing he worked with American troops, which was confirmed to them when Qasim met with an American officer while he was in prison, would be enough to release him. But they did the opposite, by sending a letter on 29/5/22 to Iraqi intelligence to check if he was required by them. While they know clearly most Iraqi security institutions have been invaded by militia who work against America. Indeed, these militia even engaged in military operations against Kurdistan on several occasions, and they knew Qasim was an asylum seeker and an Irish citizen. This means sending such a letter actually put Qasim at risk of being handed over to these militia. In the meantime, why didn't the judge ask them why they did not send the letter to Iraqi intelligence during the first week of their investigation as per the rules? Why did they wait for 2 months after their investigation was closed to find out if Qasim has any past criminal history? Why didn't the judge ask them why they didn't bring him Qassim's file to release him after they received the reply on the 16th of June from Iraqi intelligence that Qasim wasn't required? Even when Qasim raised the case to Kalar court against the military Peshmerga general who seized his goods and other stuffs, asking the court to return it back to him, the judge wrote to them asking them to send him the file relating to Qassim's detention in Soleimani. The judge made this request in December 22, but they refused. The judge sent a follow-up letter, and then it took them 4 months until they were forced to send Qassim's file to Kalar court. I'm sure any judge who respected their job would not accept just being a writer, following what others tell them to do. The judge at Kalar court gives a good impression and a good example of how a judge is supposed to be and represents justice in Kurdistan. Does this explain why Qasim was taken to Soleimani when the law stipulates he should have been taken to Kalar prison and his case dealt with at Kalar court? But strangely, Qasim was taken away to Soleimani. It is not me or Qasim saying this is strange, but people in the Kurdistan police, in the army itself, and the court who asked this question. Why did they send Qasim to Soleimani court, not the court in Kalar city? Do they have a judge in Soleimani court who'll do whatever they want and legitimise their crime, while in Kalar they don't? The evidence for that is when the Suleimaniye court judge was asked about the case Qasim raised against the Peshmerga to return the foodstuff and goods that were taken from the farm. The judge questioned why Qasim had raised the case. Unfortunately, this judge found Qasim should not ask the army. He thought Qasim's release was somehow a gift, not a right. A gift from him, a gift from Suleimaniye's security. What type of judge is this? Instead of automatically ordering the return of what was taken from Qasim, does he think as long as Qasim is released, he is supposed to forget everything else? Even the Peshmerga themselves understood and knew they breached the law by confiscating the store contents. The evidence of this is that they were informed by Kala court that there was a case raised against them. They sent a general in the Peshmerga army, General Sherzad, to return what they seized, and he met Qasim's solicitor. Then they tried to hand it to the security Asaish, who refused because they knew it was taken illegally and a lot may have been stolen by the Peshmerga general who confiscated it. Why didn't the judge question why they hadn't brought him Qasim's file 3 months earlier? Why just bring him his file on 2nd of August, after they were threatened with the involvement of the Irish embassy? Why didn't they do so after the only witness, hidden and secret, told his testimony, so the judge could decide? Why was the witness's name and what he said not attached with his file? Is it to protect the witness's safety and stop them being attacked, or was it to protect this corruption from being discovered because he is part of the game? Unfortunately, it seems the judge worked as a writer, a receptionist for those corrupt people to legitimise their crimes. Just one example. The judge in Suleimaniye court is not allowed to inform the defendants about the court's decision whether the court ordered their release or not. This keeps prisoners knowing nothing about their situation and at the mercy of security individuals to release them according to their own law, agenda and mood. This is exactly what happened with Qasim. Once they had no option under pressure of the Irish embassy becoming involved, they took his file to court asking to release him, and the judge signed the releasing order. Is he part of a long chain of corrupted individuals who cover up for each other while sharing the benefits? Why did they not respect the law, respect the court, and bring his file to a judge when Iraqi intelligence said Qasim was not required? So who decides when prisoners leave the prison or stay is the security individuals, not the court. This is a serious matter the judiciary of Kurdistan should be aware of. I also really wanted to raise the case here in a British court, but Qasim stopped me and told me he had already raised a case in Kurdistan Kala court. Qasim told me there are nice and gentle people, both inside the Kurdistan government and outside. He said, "Let us deliver this message to give them a chance to deal with the case. They would take action against those dirty minority of thieves and terrorists who exploit their position to fill their pockets at the expense of the reputation of their country. Let's try it this way," he said. Qasim loves the people in Kurdistan. He even described them to me as unique, supportive, welcoming people. They have big hearts to accept others. Unfortunately, we thought Kurdistan is different. There is not as many militias in the rest of Iraq, but this and more evidence clearly shows that those corrupted people are copying Saddam. But Saddam, with all his tyranny, is Saddam, not hiding or denying his crimes. But those people wear a mask and hide themselves behind a weak government that they ensure stays weak so it remains under their control. They are deceiving the government with their effort, and the secret measures they follow make Kurdistan a safe place compared to the rest of Iraqi regions, while in fact they steal the achievements and efforts of Kurdistan public which they are supposed to make peace for. As per Qasim, any new resident in any city in Kurdistan, The neighbours knock on their door and ask them politely to visit them, to get to know each other. The man talks to the man, the woman talks to the woman. Then if they find any suspicious issue, any suspicious visitors, they will report them to the local police. But if they found them poor, without the essential needs for a house, they contact charitable organisations, mosques, donators. Then in a few days this new resident gets the support they need. With the alertness, awareness, kindness and morality of the Kurdish people, Kurdistan is safe and a melting pot for all peoples to live in peace. Not because of the efficiency of the security services, who, as we saw, try to build a dictatorship or mafia of corrupted people wearing the mask of a civilian's country. They have no respect for laws, rules, or diplomatic ethics if they oppose their desire. As evidenced by the information I provided about how the Kurdistan consulate dealt with my case, knowing I'm a British citizen, and how those in top security in Kurdistan dealt with Qasim, despite knowing he was a European citizen. He doesn't even have an Iraqi passport. Also, there are a lot of good people who dealt with the case in a professional way. The mayor of Kalar city, the security office in Suleimaniye, who investigated and closed the case in days. The security Asaish at Kalaju dealt with this case from start to Qasim's release with professionalism and integrity, in contrast to how the Peshmerga leader behaved. While I am saying these words about some corrupted individuals within the Kurdistan government, with my respect for others inside and out this government who work hard for their people, I send my love and greetings to them and to the Kurdistan public who make Kurdistan a melting pot for people from different backgrounds, ethnicities and religions. Next, I want to speak to those who did this to Qasim. It is clear that Qasim has considered that this case puts you at risk. He wasn't supposed to know what is going on in your prison, but you put him there. It is your own ingenuity. If you have a lot of dirty work going in there, why put such a highly qualified, educated person there? Surely such a person has eyes like a camera, capturing all special and interesting footage, has ears like a recorder, recording what he hears, has functional brain links and can analyse what he sees, hears and knows what's going on. Does Qasim invent stories, seek revenge from you for the harm that you caused to him? Qasim didn't even raise a case against you here or in Ireland, but raised it in Kurdistan, in Kalar Court, where you have power and authority. Despite the inconvenience of raising a case so far away, still Qasim believes in the judicial system in Kurdistan. Even Qasim in this case, he just asked to be compensated for the goods, the fortune you stole. Well, he has donated in advance what he has asked for in psychological harm to disabled children and schools in Kalar city. Regarding the personal harm that I was exposed to, I already provided a power of attorney for solicitors in Iran. I provided the British consulate with their names and contact details. I hope the Kurdistan government takes responsibility to provide them with protection and transparency to represent me, and act for me to reassure me and deliver justice for the harm I endured. They know nothing about what I mentioned here. I understand what I mentioned here is bigger than they can deal with or bear to know. I'm asking the Kurdistan government and the good people who represent the government in Suleimaniye to take all measure against those bad people and deliver justice for us all. I'm hoping that this will help Qasim and I put this whole thing behind us, and that we may even visit Kurdistan in the near future, inshallah.